Jim Jones. Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's not like no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family.
An old audio of Jay-Z just leaked, and in it he flat out calls Jim Jones a snitch. But here's where it gets spicy. Jay's #1 at Roc Nation is already a confirmed federal informant. So why is Jay-Z throwing shade at Jim now? And why him specifically? So here's the setup. Recently, Jim Jones stirred up a storm after making some fiery comments about Nas. That's when all of Jim's messy old drama started bubbling back to the surface, with receipts popping up claiming he cooperated with the feds. But here's the wild part. If Jay-Z is so anti-snitch, then why is his own right-hand woman at Roc Nation known in the streets as an informant? And even crazier, why did Jay give Jim Jones a Roc Nation deal if he believed Jim was snitching too? Let's rewind to the leaked audio that sparked all this chaos. In this resurfaced clip, Jay is talking about his beef with Jim Jones, and he straight up calls Jim a fake rapper, saying he doesn't even count him as a real peer because his role in the industry ain't really about the music, but something else.
Scared to hustle because niggas are snitching so much. Maybe that's what's going on. I would be scared to hustle too when I know that every other nigga is snitching just so he don't want to do no time because he's can't bear to be inside the jail system.
As we can tell, there's no expense being spared. We had a black billionaire's lunch. Yeah. You understand?
Right.
And we here together.
So does this mean Jay knew something about Jim before the rest of the world figured it out? If Jay was already hinting that Jim was a fake rapper and possibly an informant, why would he still bring Jim into Roc Nation? And here's another twist. These whispers about Jim being a federal snitch, they've been circulating for years, and you already know, 50 Cent never lets anybody forget. He's been keeping this rumor alive every chance he gets, throwing shots and making sure it stays in the spotlight. 50 Cent brought the snitch talk right back into the spotlight with a savage Instagram post showing Jim Jones standing next to Jay-Z, Diddy, Fat Joe, and a few others. In the caption, he laughed, writing, "LOL individual one, calling the shots out here. I know you work it, so please don't say gangster-ish to me, individual one." That line had the streets buzzing. And if you're wondering what he meant, it all ties back to those long-running rumors that Jim was cozy with the feds. See, during Tekashi 6ix9ine's wild racketeering case, things got messy. While Tekashi was on the stand snitching hard on his 9 Trey Blood crew, a wiretapped phone call leaked where Jim was heard saying Tekashi ain't a gang member no more and needs to get violated. That line went viral, and of course, T.I. didn't waste a second. He even posted the full transcript of that call for everyone to see. Now, here's the backstory. Back in 2018, Tekashi got slammed with federal racketeering and gun charges along with a bunch of 9 Trey gangsta bloods, a violent crew tied to the Bloods. The feds had been watching and building a case on them for a while. When Tekashi finally got arrested, he flipped fast and started working with the government to save himself. Then came his infamous courtroom snitch fest in September 2019, where Tekashi got up and named names. He pointed fingers at guys like Anthony Harv Ellison, Al-Jeremiah Nuke Mack, and a few more, laying out the whole 9 Trey playbook for the feds to eat up. Putting all kinds of dirt on the record, Tekashi was naming names left and right. But where does Jim Jones fit into all this mess? Well, his name came up loud and clear in some wiretap audio played during the trial, and it shook the room. On one of those calls, Jim was allegedly talking to Jamel Mel Murda Jones, another big name in 9 Trey. In that heated conversation, they seemed to be scheming about how to deal with Tekashi after he announced he was leaving the gang. And the way Jim was talking, it sounded like he was hinting at straight-up retaliation. That wiretap caught everyone's attention fast, not just because it put Jim right in the middle of the 9 Trey top dogs, but because it raised a much bigger question. How in the world did Jim end up on a federal wire talking about gang moves and still walk away with no charges?
Competitive sport, but on the other end of it, it's like certain people shouldn't be able to say your names until they've done something in the genre of music. I've done too much in this music to even have to answer that question. Like Jim Jones, who is Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's not He's like, no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family. I was saying last night, it's like the 8th guy on the bench just screaming at Jordan, like, you a bum. Like, you want to be like the 9th guy on the bench. I'm not even worried about you.
So when the trial wrapped up, the street started asking what everyone was thinking. How does Jim get caught on tape plotting to violate someone, yet he's the only one out of the crew who didn't get indicted? Naturally, that sparked some heavy speculation that Jim was either working with the feds or at least cooperating just enough to dodge the fire. And nobody pushed that theory harder than Whack 100. He flat out called Jim a federal informant, saying the only reason he didn't get locked up was because he was playing ball with the law. Whack even doubled down on Clubhouse in interviews, and when talking to Tekashi himself, daring Jim to clear his name and drop receipts proving he wasn't cooperating. But it didn't stop there, not even close. Former Dipset member Jaja jumped in and poured even more gas on the fire, claiming she had straight-up receipts proving that Jim set up his own friend Mel Murda. That accusation shook people because it made the situation even messier. Now that you see where all the Jim Jones is a snitch talk really started, let's swing back to Jay-Z. Because to really understand why Jay might have set Jim up for a public takedown, you gotta look at just how deep their beef actually runs. Jay and Jim's drama goes way back. We're talking over a decade of tension, starting all the way in the early 2000s. It kicked off around 2002 when Dame Dash brought Cameron and Jim Jones into Rockefeller. That move sparked friction because Jim claimed Cam was promised a vice president role at the label, but Jay never publicly co-signed that. When pressed, Jay told the source at the time, "That's not taking effect as of yet. I think the talk is a little premature as of right now."
Rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine pleaded guilty to federal charges, admitting he participated in a violent gang. He also pledged to cooperate with prosecutors. The rapper, whose legal name is Daniel Hernandez, said he joined the 9 Trey Blood Gang in the fall of 2017. He says he helped them try to kill a rival gang member last March. Prosecutors say the gang carried out acts of murder, robbery, and narcotics trafficking in Manhattan, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. The indictment also said each gang member was required to participate in at least 2 acts of racketeering conspiracy, which could include murder, robbery, extortion, or drug distribution. The plea deal could allow Hernandez leniency at sentencing. He was facing a mandatory 47-year prison sentence.
All this was brewing right when Jay was also beefing heavy with Nas. To add fuel, Jay recorded a remix of Cameron and Jules Santana's hit, "Oh Boy," where he slid in some shots at Nas. But Cam and Jim weren't feeling it one bit. They flat out refused to release Jay's remix. And Cam even went so far as to cut Jay's verse completely. Cam later explained he wasn't about to let Jay use their record to fight his own battles against Nas. And that move only deepened the bad blood. That moment basically set the tone for everything that came next. Cam and Jim felt like Jay had no respect for them. And that's when the sneak disses started flying heavy. Jim began calling Jay out in interviews and on the radio, saying he was corporate, soft, and way out of touch with the streets. Jim made sure everybody knew he stood on integrity and keeping it real, even throwing shade at rappers who turned into snitches. That was his whole image. Real street, no switching sides. At first, Jay stayed quiet, playing it cool and not responding directly. But the tension inside Rockefeller was obvious. Everybody could feel it. Then, in 2006, Jim dropped his smash hit, "We Fly High," and it took over everywhere. That's when Jay finally clapped back with Brooklyn High, a clear response aimed right at Jim. But it didn't end there. Jim came right back swinging with a "We Fly High" beef mix where he went even harder at Jay, calling him an old head and firing shots like, "I told, warning your old A to chill. Better slow down before your old A gets killed." Then fast forward to 2008, and the beef spilled into real-life drama. Security cameras caught Jim putting hands on somebody inside a Louis Vuitton store. Turns out the man was Jay-Z's longtime A&R, Lenny Santiago. That scene had the streets talking. Jim ended up getting arrested for that and later pled guilty to misdemeanor assault. Jay, as usual, didn't say much publicly, but a few months later, he slipped some shade into an XXL interview, throwing jabs at Jim by saying tracks like "Nah, nah, 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 nah" are exactly what's wrong out here.
He definitely humiliating Shotty right now. But
well, we got the picture up there next to the post. Nigga, like when you go to YouTube and World Star, they got his picture next to this. Everything he say, they got a split screen with Shotty picture next to this. I said, this is crazy, son. But he doing that to make K9 think he don't got no relationship with Boy. That's what he trying to do. He trying to separate himself.
That's cool, but now he gotta get violated.
Yeah, super violated. Super duper. So ain't too much he can really do unless he gonna go run around with 100 armed securities all day. You know what I'm saying? He gonna get shot at pay.
He ain't getting enough money for that.
That's a fact. And he just canceled all his shows.
And he ain't a gang member no more.
Nah, he ain't nothing.
That's what Shotty needs to make sure he do.
Nah, we
tell that he's not a gang member no more. He kicked out the whip. He was never a gang member. Shotty need to expose him.
Dragging the culture down, that's how Jay put it. He said, I mean, like Jim Jones, for example. And I don't mean this just because we never see eye to eye. He made nah, 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 nah. What's the difference between Smiley Face by Trey Songz and Soulja Boy and nah, 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 nah? Could have been called Smiley Face. That line stung and showed how little respect Jay had for Jim's music. After that, the beef cooled down for a while. But then in 2015, Dipset fired things back up with a fiery freestyle over Diddy's Victory beat. Cam and Jim threw shots at Jay and Roc Nation, clowning the Roc Nation brunch and calling Jay too soft and corporate for the streets. But then, everything flipped. Out of nowhere, Jim started begging Jay to sign him. Jump to February 2017, after 13 long years of back and forth beef, Jim officially signed with Roc Nation and joined Jay's camp. That move had everybody talking because it felt like Jim swallowed all his pride to make it happen.
He ran with the same I ran with a decade before I met him. Jim Jones, the Dipset, the that was just over there dancing on verses. Jim Jones was running with Shotty, Cafano Jordan, right? Mel Matrix, Jamel Jones, Ro Murder, Roland Martin. He was running Fu Banger, Fuquan. I forgot his last name, Fuquan something. He was running with all of the cats I ran with and got in daddy for. You know what Jim Jones did? That nigga did not take care of none of them. Cause when I ran to them, Shotty was sleeping on the rug on Madison between Tompkins and Troop. Mel Murder was on Gates and Marcus Garvey with his baby mother. Roland Martin was just doing 9 years. He blew trial. That made them. That take care of him. From Shotty was sleeping on the rug. That driving a 6'3" Benz in 6 months, living in a condo, doing meetings with Kanye. Kanye was taking him to Yeezy meetings, board meetings. Matrix had his own, everything on his own. His kids was eating. Roland Martin came home to a new AP, watch, money, cars, everything. That Jim Jones did not take care of none of his. I took care of him. And on top of that, Jim Jones was caught on wiretap telling Jamel, look, Jim Jones was caught on wiretap. Jim Jones was caught on wiretap on my case, he was telling the big homie Mel Matrix, Jamel Jones, to go and get rid of my security. How you do it? How you shoot at them? They don't got no license to carry weapons, don't nothing in New York.
Jim started bragging about finally getting invited to Jay's famous Roc Nation brunch, the same event he used to diss. He even began praising Jay publicly, going all out to show loyalty and prove he was on the team now. But Jay, he stayed stone cold silent. He barely acknowledged Jim's deal, keeping everything strictly business. It was obvious he didn't want anyone thinking they were suddenly tight. And here's where it gets real interesting. Some folks say Jay giving Jim that deal wasn't a truce at all, but a cold-blooded chess move, because everybody knows Jay-Z has a reputation for absorbing his rivals, flipping enemies into pawns on his board. And that's where the whispers really got loud. Was Jay-Z playing a long game to humiliate Jim Jones in public while keeping him under control behind the scenes? Some insiders claim Jay never forgot all the disrespect, the disses, the physical altercations, and instead of clapping back the way most would, he played it smart and strategic. After signing Jim, Jay allegedly kept him on the sidelines, giving him just enough shine to quiet the streets, but never letting him move like a real boss under Roc Nation.
Detective Jones, people that splash brand do not f with no informants. I did 4 years in the feds, homie, because I ain't snitch. You set your best friend up on a wiretap. See, Whack 100 and Tekashi, they don't got receipts like that because they really don't know.
Did a little something for you in the studio. Then he had something to Old Boy.
This is Old Boy's already #1?
Yeah, it's popping. I listened to it and I was like, erase that.
People started noticing how Jim got the invite to brunches and photo ops, but wasn't getting the same opportunities as other artists in Jay's circle. And even wilder, some say Jay made sure to keep Jim close because of all those lingering federal snitch rumors. If Jim really had ties to the feds, Jay putting him in the Roc Nation family meant Jay could watch him directly, keep tabs on him, and make sure no funny business happened on his turf. Meanwhile, Jim kept playing the part, showing up to Roc Nation events, hyping Jay up on social media, acting like the beef was ancient history. But behind the scenes, folks say Jay never truly trusted him. And some even claim Jay quietly fed the streets just enough information to keep Jim's name tied to those federal informant allegations, making sure he could never fully shake that label. So now the big question looms. Was this just business? Or was Jay executing the ultimate revenge, turning a rival into an employee, keeping him in check, and letting the streets do the rest? And just when people thought things had cooled off for good, boom! Another twist hit the streets.
They hustling like they need to, you dig? And they ain't keeping it funky like they used to. So I don't understand. Maybe scared to hustle because snitching so much. Maybe that's what's going on. I would be scared to hustle too when I know that every other snitching just so he don't want to do no time because he can't bear to be inside the jail system. Now the to say not nothing to brag about. When I was coming up, kind of happy to go to jail to say they did something tough, even though I never been behind the walls myself. But my I be around, there used to be a bragging point, like I just came home at. That was when we was young. Nowadays, you punks are scared to go in and do the damn.
In the years after Jim signed with Roc Nation, folks kept digging into his past, and more so-called receipts started popping up. Screenshots, court documents, even more old wiretaps got brought back into the spotlight. And every time his name was mentioned, the word snitch followed right behind it. People in the street started saying it out loud. How come every time someone gets caught up, Jim walks away clean? That question started gaining momentum again when new cases against 9 Trey affiliates popped up. And once again, Jim's name was in the mix, but he never saw a cell. And of course, Whack 100 couldn't resist jumping back in. He hopped on Clubhouse and Instagram, calling Jim out again and even mocking him for how quiet he stayed when those documents resurfaced. At one point, Whack even said, "If you ain't working with them people, show us. Show the papers."
Looks like another former rival will be relying on Hov's team to steer his career, as Dip says Jim Jones is allegedly heading over to Roc Nation. Capo posted a picture of bottles of Douce and Ace of Spades next to a Roc Nation letterhead on IG and told fans to caption this.
But Jim never publicly showed anything. Instead, he doubled down on his loyalty to Roc Nation, posting flicks from Jay's parties, popping bottles, and acting unbothered. But behind closed doors, some insiders claim Jay was quietly letting the rumors about Jim keep circulating, never defending him, never speaking up, just letting the streets talk. And it made people wonder, was Jay just letting the streets bury Jim's credibility while still keeping him close enough to control? Or was Jim playing his own game, staying loyal on the surface while hiding something deeper? Either way, the chessboard stayed messy, and neither Jay nor Jim seemed ready to flip it over just yet. Signing that deal with Roc Nation was supposed to be Jim Jones's big win. But even after Jay brought him to the Roc, he kept his distance like nothing ever changed. So was Jay just protecting his brand, keeping Jim at arm's length because of that whole Tekashi mess and the snitching whispers. Well, here's where it gets real tricky. Jay's whole "I don't mess with snitches" act might just be for show, because guess what? Jay's own right-hand woman and president of Rock Nation, Desiree Perez, is a documented federal informant. So if Jay is cool doing business with an actual informant, then why would he ghost Jim Jones over some street rumors? That's when another theory started buzzing. What if Jay was playing both sides all along? Maybe for Jay it was never about loyalty. Maybe it was always about control and power. At the end of the day, Jay didn't need Jim, but Jim definitely needed Jay. So when Jim's name showed up on those wiretaps, Jay did what he always does: protect the brand at all costs. So maybe Jay wasn't mad that Jim might have snitched. Maybe he was mad Jim wasn't snitching for him. And that right there raises a whole lot of questions about what kind of company Jay really keeps, and who's really calling the shots. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your people. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and we'll catch you on the next one.